I'm Leah Boleto with the Sky News Daily, and I'm at the High Court in London along with dozens of photographers and camera crews from the UK and across the world. Pavement barriers are lining the road leading to the entrance of the High Court in anticipation of Prince Harry's arrival on Tuesday. But as we're here recording this outside court, things inside, the legal proceedings, well, they've wrapped for the day, and we've been watching the legal teams leaving, wheeling their trolleys full of legal documents.
Well, it's a pertinent question. Who made the decision for Prince Harry not to appear?
This is the start of a hearing that will see a senior royal giving evidence in court for the first time in 130 years. This is Prince Harry's action against Mirror Group newspapers. He's suing the publishers of the Daily Mirror because he claims he was a victim of unlawful information gathering, along with his brother, the Prince of Wales, their mother, Diana, and their father, King Charles. So I'm joined now by media lawyer Jonathan Coad and our royal correspondent Laura Bundock. What a day it's been today. You know, the first senior British member of the royal family to give evidence since, the 19th century?
I was reminded of that walking here. First thing this morning, you walk past a big statue of Prince Albert thinking, oh my goodness, that was his son. Edward VII was the last person, he was then Prince of Wales, who had to come to the High Court to give evidence from the witness stand. He only had to appear for 20 minutes or so. Harry's ordeal, and I'm calling it an ordeal, but I don't think it's going to be easy for him, will last a lot longer. He wasn't here today in court though. We just had the opening arguments from both sides, but it set the scene, I think, for what Harry can expect. But it is a very, very significant moment. The fact you have to go back so far shows that this doesn't happen. The royal family do not like seeing themselves in court. Harry has chosen this moment.
Yes, so Harry didn't turn up, but Jonathan, the judge, wasn't happy with that. What was the atmosphere like inside?
Well, right from the outset, the two advocates locked horns. That is clearly going to be the context of this battle, because it is to some extent a combat between two warriors. And David and the Casey for the Mirror started arguing right at the beginning about how much time each of them will have for their case. The judge has set a 3-day limit on this case. It's one of a whole load. And so they're arguing about who gets more time to address the judge. So right from the outset, swords were drawn.
Okay, so Prince Harry will arrive tomorrow. We know that. He'll be here tomorrow. Big moments today, Laura. We will touch on some of those. You know, the letters from Princess Diana to Michael Barrymore, bouts of depression from Prince Harry after that breakup with Chelsea Davy. But how did we get here, Laura?
We've got
a long
here.
story.
It's a very long. How long have you got? No, we got here because Harry has made it very clear. He puts it this way: his life's work is to try and change the media landscape. He believes that from a very young age, and today we heard about that, how from the age of 11, his life was essentially hacked into. His phone was hacked into. Private investigators were deployed to look into him. There was blagging, so the deceptive ways they were trying to get personal, private information about him. All of this simply to sell newspapers. That is what he's all about here. He could have settled this case, but he wants his moment in court. He wants these revelations to come out so we hear about them, so he can have them discussed, and he ultimately wants those who were responsible. He believes those at the very top knew exactly what was going on. He wants them held to account, and in some cases thrown into jail. Those are his words, those are his allegations.
And Jonathan, this isn't the only case that Prince Harry is bringing against the press.
No, he's not, and he's declared full-on war against them. And as someone who has fought the press on behalf of everything from celebrities, footballers to ordinary people, I can tell you that fighting the press is not for the faint-hearted. Now, Harry, of course, is a warrior. He fought the Taliban. But when you fight the press in court, it is not generally, according to the Marquis of Queensberry rules, that they defend themselves. And I regret to say I have seen some pretty grim stuff, grim conduct by lawyers active in newspapers over the years. And in fact, if you look at the judgment of Mr. Justice Warby, as he then was, in the claim which Meghan Markle brought against the Mail on Sunday, he was very rude about the defence counsel and their case. in that case, it's clear that the newspaper decided they were just going to make life hard, despite the fact they had no defence. Looks as though there's a better defence here, but Harry is going to get roasted tomorrow in the witness box. They're not going to spare him, and he's going to need nerves of steel to get through it.
In all his other interviews, he's always been in control of that, so it will be quite explosive. But let's talk about today before we get to tomorrow, because it was quite interesting. Is that his lawyer focusing on those 33 articles in particular?
They're the ones that have been selected.
Yeah.
So there are lots more. We've heard that there were 147, but thousands basically. But there were 33 articles which they think they have a strong case to prove that these articles were the product of or involved bits of information that was unlawfully gathered, basically. And so these articles go all the way back to when Harry was a boy, not even a teenager.
From 11.
Really, really young. And article, when his mother was still alive. It go right the way through his personal, his family, his private and his professional life. And I think what we saw today is how they're trying to paint this picture of it just being endemic when it came to Harry, constantly there. It was a habitual thing with him. The Mirror denies this completely, but when we heard about Diana, his mother, how her voicemail was hacked, it revealed these secret kind of conversations and meetings she'd had with the entertainer Michael Barrymore, how she was devastated that information came out, how he stopped getting in touch with her, she didn't know why, and it was, he thought she was leaking, she had no idea, and now this is what Harry's alleging. We heard more also about the let me move this microphone closer to my mouth. We heard more about the relationship with his brother, William, how there was a sense that they had a falling out, that the details of that falling out had been made public very early on, and how this had sown some seeds of discord, as it was put in court. The sense that it was fueling and fostering a mistrust between them that led to paranoia. The trust they had, the bond they had as brothers eroded away. And I think that is, we know lots about now how they've fallen out, the rift they've had. It is well documented, isn't it? But we're seeing that, was this perhaps being played out very early on as a result of how the press was negatively covering that relationship? That's certainly what Harry is claiming here.
And there was also lots of talk about Chelsea Davy and how much that relationship was hounded by the press.
Oh, non-stop. And of the 33 articles, 12 are about their relationship. So that's a big thing here. How they were kids, basically. They were very young, weren't they? Teenagers. She was still at school when they met. And how they never felt like they were alone. That, I think, played a massive part in it, doesn't it?
It was bombshell, wasn't it, Jonathan?
Well, it is. But what strikes me is the extent of the wickedness that's being exposed here. I have had 3 clients of mine in the public eye who've attempted suicide. What this shows is the extent to which the tabloid press, which is not properly regulated, and this is one of Harry's big beefs, and he's right about it, what they therefore are free to do. And I feel very strongly in support of him, because he's carrying the banner for thousands and thousands of people who can't afford lawyers, who can't afford to ignore the vast sums which he will have been offered. Because we know that William has accepted a very large sum of money in settlement. We can also say for absolute certain that Harry will have been offered a very large sum of money, but he doesn't care. It's not what he's here for. It's not for money. It's to hold these people to account. Now, I think he is absolutely right to do so, and he's brave in doing so at some risk to himself, because it's possible tomorrow. I mean, this is not a low risk exercise. Okay, financially he can afford to lose, although it'd be a lot of money if he does, but he could have a finding against him effectively that the judge doesn't believe what he says. Now that is a massive risk to take. I don't think it'll happen, but he's really put himself on the line here, but I think good on him.
And then, Laura, obviously, Andrew Green, KC, came out fighting, sort of saying, Harry's extensive claims, there's no evidence that they're true.
Yeah, so I think what he was trying to say is that despite the fact that we know there are lots and lots of invoices to private investigators, does that mean they were illegally obtaining information? And does it mean that what information they were getting was then creating these stories? He's saying you've got a big jump, basically, between that situation, an invoice to a PI, and a story popping up in a newspaper. And, that gap is the one that Harry has to try and close, or join the dots with, if you like. What will be interesting, I think, about when Harry gives evidence, when Harry's in the witness stand, is so far, everything we've heard from Harry, every time he's opened his mouth, and we've heard a lot, it's been on his terms. tomorrow will be completely different. It is not going to be on his terms.
Yeah. They're going to rip shreds through any kind of...
They'll want to.
Yeah.
And he can't be told what to say. He can be advised and he can be told, we suggest you think about these questions, but they won't be able to put words in his mouth.
And Laura makes a very good point. I mean, I've prepared witnesses for years. And I guess that they'll do what I would do. If I was Harry's lawyer, I would cross-examine him. I would sit
like a practice
exactly
over and over.
that. I would sit down and I'd ask myself, okay, what are the likely questions? And I'd cross-examine and know what I absolutely can't do and would not do is give him the answers. But what I can do is prepare him for the likely areas he's going to be questioned, so that it's less likely he'll be caught off guard, because that KC is not going to spare him, and he's a KC for a good reason. He's good.
Yeah.
So, and Harry, is not a lawyer. This is not familiar ground to him. He's probably happier with a rifle than he is in the courtroom. So I'm sure that his team, entirely properly, has done all they can to de-risk the cross-examination as best as they can. But there is no way you can de-risk it fully. So he's still very much on the line.
Laura, I want you to just talk us through what will happen for the next few days. But very quickly, what impact do you think this will have on the royal family? They'll be watching this, won't they?
They will be watching it, and they will be very grateful it is none of them doing this. William would have had the chance to do exactly this. He didn't want to. He wanted to settle out of court. Harry wants these details made public. That's why he's coming. I think what we'll see is a huge amount of press outside the court. I mean, today was the tip of the iceberg. It's going to be enormous. There'll be press from all over the world wanting to cover this. Harry wants that coverage. But he has to be very careful, because he is talking about the press in a negative way. He says he hasn't got a vendetta against the press in general, that he wants to use his platform for the greater good. He has this bigger mission, this bigger purpose, if you like. But it will be very interesting to see how it plays out for him. It could go either way, and it is a huge personal risk. I know that the king isn't in the country at the moment. He's very conveniently on holiday in Transylvania. We're not going to be hearing from any of them. There will be no comment about this. There hasn't ever been. They say it's ongoing legal proceedings. I'm sure they'll be worried about what he's going to say, but they all know Harry does things his way and there is no stopping him.
Okay, so Tuesday, Harry takes to the stand. Wednesday, cross-examining of Harry. Is that the timetable?
No, he will be cross-examined straight away tomorrow.
Ah, okay.
So just to explain, what will happen is that his own barrister will take him to the stand. He will then be given he'll then take the oath. Mm-hmm. David Sherborne will say, "Is this your witness statement?" And Harry will say yes. He said, can you confirm the contents of that witness statement is true? And he'll say yes. At that point, the witness statement is sworn. Mm-hmm. And at that point, David Sherborne sits down and the Mirror KC stands up and gives it the full whack. So that'll be all of tomorrow and half a day on Wednesday. Now, what happened this morning was that there was an argument about how long the KC had to cross-examine him. And the KC said, a day isn't enough, my lord, I want a day and a half. And the judge said, you know what, I think that's fair enough. So he's been given an extra half a day. And they're going to be very exciting times.
Okay, thank you so much, Laura and Jonathan. Appreciate your time. Thank you. My thanks to Laura, Jonathan, and to you for listening to the Sky News Daily with me, Leah Boleto. This episode was produced by Annie Joyce with Sydney Peed, the editors Philly Beaumont. And just to let you know, there's a special Sky News programme on TV at 9 o'clock each evening reflecting on the day's court proceedings. So if you're listening to this after they're played out, you can watch it back on our mobile app and YouTube channel.